evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of Life Chat with Karen and Alex. And this evening is a very, very special broadcast, because you see I've got my dapper suit on.
Very stylish, very busy.
And I am interviewing my fabulous co-host and friend on her new book. I'm so excited. So, do you want to say hello or anything before we kick off?
I did say hello. You were too busy talking.
I was too busy getting excited.
That's right. Good evening.
So,
Alex is going to be doing a lot of the talking to begin with, so I'll just say it quietly. But
yes,
well,
I've got my water. I don't know.
Actually,
quietly,
it's an evening. Where's the wine?
Oh,
it's not wine on Wednesday.
It's not wine on Wednesday. We've got water.
We have
water.
How's that? We have water.
Water. So, this is Karen's book. So good. Why it's even signed?
It's going to be worth a fortune.
It will.
These days.
One day it'll be worth a fortune. So, Karen Ferguson, my life with a sociopath. So I just want to start before I dig in and get down and dirty with the questions. I just want to read the back of the book so you can get an idea of what it's about. So here's what it says. It started with a comment on social media. Actually, that's not true. It started long before then, but that comment led to a message, which led to several calls and ended with him driving into my house. Through the use of genuine text messages, I've opened up my life to show what I went through in the last 2 years with an aggressive, lying, stealing, borderline alcoholic, sociopathic husband. There's some big words in here for me to read.
There are indeed.
Even with my glasses on. Hashtag my life with a sociopath. So anyone that talks about this book, please hashtag my life with a sociopath.
Please do.
Is an important read to show that this really can help. This really can happen to anyone. To educate people on the signs to look for, what you can do to protect yourself, and how to find the strength to end this type of relationship. My Life with a Sociopath gives you access to the raw, unedited messages between me and my husband, which together with my honest commentary provides an insight into psychological abuse. I hope that it may help those who find themselves in a similar situation and will be a voice for those who may have lost theirs. Well, so
no small thing going on there, really.
I know. So I've got a list of questions I'm going to ask Karen, and there's something Karen doesn't know. I have actually spent all day today reading this book.
You're the only one. No one else has got it yet. They don't get it till tomorrow.
No, but I haven't got my tissues. So
I'm not going to comfort you.
Oh my God, like literally, I don't think, unless I've been on holiday, I have not read a book from front to back in the space of what, six hours.
Perhaps we need to say here before we read it, Glenn, you need to buy some tissues.
No, but I think it just depends on the person. Like I know Karen, not known her that long, only a year. However, I started off reading the book and I was like, oh, you know how you nod in agreement. It went like that, and then it was like, then I was laughing, and I got to the end.
There are some funny moments in there.
There are quite a few. There are quite a few funny moments in there, I will say. And then I got to the end, and needed the tissues. It was just very, it's amazing. So I don't want to give too much away because obviously we want everyone to go out and buy a copy.
We'll put the links at the end, don't worry.
So
if you've got questions, if you're watching us live and you've got questions, if Alex looks at her phone, she'll be able to tell you.
I'm going to have both screens up, although that looks like it's it looks like it's stuck, is it?
No, it's just a video waiting to go off. Does it? All right?
Oh, maybe. Okay.
I'm going to need a tissue at this rate now.
So
because I've got
I'm hiding
for you though. You're out of luck.
No, that's fine. Thanks. So, okay. First and foremost, then. So obviously, this is you. This is raw. This is your account of the book. There's some very personal things in there. So why on earth? Why on earth did you decide to go public and write it?
because after he left, I spoke to quite a lot of people. When I posted my story, people I knew and people I didn't know reached out to me and were like, oh my God, do you actually understand what we're talking about? And I think out of one group, I think I said in the book actually, but out of something like 6 of us, I was the only one that got a conviction. And some of these other people had been beaten and they couldn't, the police let them down.
Yeah.
Others were too scared to go to court to face their abuser. And it kind of angered me. I'm not going to lie. There's moments when I think, well, what I went through wasn't that bad because, and people do have that perception. Someone said to me, well, at least he didn't beat you. Well, yeah, you're right. I guess there is that. I mean, but I think I was just kind of angry that this happens so often, that so many people get away with this. And I just want to say again, I do mention this in the book. I talk about it from my perspective as a woman. I'm not ignoring the fact that it happens to men. I'm really not. I just, at the moment, don't have enough information. Yeah. So when I say women, I don't just mean women. I mean whoever you are. We're not excluding men by any stretch of the imagination. I think it just needed to be said.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're right. There's some personal stuff in there, but there's also, not every message is in there, and I do explain in the book why.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of it, and I still have the messages. So, why did I keep the messages? Probably a good reason. I don't know. I don't know.
Write a book.
Well, yeah, but I didn't know that at the time. And when I think I got to that point, there was they're all iCards, so I can't see them. But we did get to that point, and I was like, I don't trust the police with my information. They've actually, afterwards, it turns out that they destroyed my property without asking my permission. So I kept them partly because I didn't trust the system to keep hold of the information in case I needed it. But yeah, I don't really know why initially I kept them. I guess they were just messages, and I didn't really think about it too highly. They're just there.
Yeah, no. But that's a really valid point that you make. People saying to you, when people said to you, well, at least he didn't hit you.
Yeah.
That, like, domestic abuse comes in all sorts of shapes and sizes. It's not just the physical scars that you can see. No. It's the mental torture that people can do. So
and I read something the other day on one of the groups that I'm on, that's something like don't quote me on this, I think it was something like 90% of domestic abuse involves financial abuse as well.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Okay, so next question then. The title, My Life with a Sociopath. So what does that mean? What does the title mean?
Well, to begin with, the working title was the strapline. It can happen to anyone, and that was the first thing that came up because it can. I remember speaking to a solicitor some time ago before this, and when she pointed out to me that this man I'd been married to was abusive, I remember going to my car and kind of hitting the steering wheel and going, well, that must make me really stupid then, because I didn't see it. And other people said, no, it's not that. You got used to it, and it's true. And I understand that now. But to begin with, that's kind of what I thought. How on earth did I not see that? Well, I guess because I wasn't looking for it. But I was never 100% comfortable with the title just as that. And it was when someone said to me, Karen is a sociopath. And I kind of went, and I got up a checklist, because not the field I work in, it's in the book, the literal checklist. And I was like, oh my goodness, he literally hits every single marker of that. And I do give examples in the book. So it's not just me going, oh yes. And that's what it came up with. It was actually, funny enough, my lovely publisher, the wonderful Taryn, who is eminently patient and lovely, who helped me come up. In fact, you were there when we came up with the title, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
You were there when we came up with the title.
Thank you very much.
So, and it just Delivered by the lovely Jake, thank you. So yeah, I mean, and it's true. I guess it's what it is. My life with a sociopath. So I guess it's kind of a simple title in a way. Yeah. It just explains what the book's about.
Fabulous. So obviously, like going through all that, what were the hardest parts to deal with? Like you're writing the book, you're reliving a nightmare.
When I first started writing it, I nearly gave up a few times because everything I read either made me cry, made me angry, made me shake. And it's weird, you know, because it wasn't until I started writing it, and obviously this was over years, and it was bad, okay, quite good and terrible, and you kind of get used to the ups and the downs. Yeah. So it's like, oh, there's this relief. But it wasn't until I read it in one long go of all the messages, and I was like, what on earth was I doing putting up with this? Because you didn't see it all in one go. No. And there were times that I was like, oh, I don't want to write this. And then I was like, no, the only way I can do this is I approached it like a research project. And I literally typed up the information that I had. And so that's how I got through it, because otherwise it was triggering me every single time I tried to read it. And it was really traumatizing me and I'd get kind of angry and all sorts of things. So yeah, I had to step outside what I was doing. Yeah. And in fact, one of my friends that she really raw information to begin with, she kind of threw the book down in disgust, not at me, at what he'd done. She was so angry on my behalf. She said, I couldn't even read it. I had to put it down for several hours before I could come back to it. Yeah. So yeah, that's how I had to do it. I had to step outside of the experience and write it as a theoretical exercise.
Yeah. Wow. So obviously you've gone through, basically writing the book, you've relived the whole thing. But did you learn anything from the experience of writing? Did you learn anything maybe about yourself, or just learn anything about the power of writing?
Well, one thing I struggled with when I first wrote it, I was concerned that I came across as cold. Right. And I knew I came across as cold. And when I gave it to my publisher, I said to her, I'm really concerned that I come across as cold. And she read it and she went, yeah, you do. She said, but I know you're not. And so I had to, the parts I've written, I had to write and rewrite a lot, because I'd got so used to not feeling that trying to write about it was really hard. I couldn't quite grasp it. I was kind of doing it again in like the practical, this is how it is, this is what happened, this is my perception. So having to go back and then put the emotion into it, because I am, believe it or not, I am quite an emotional person. I might not show it a lot, but I am. So yeah, I think for me that was the hardest, but I knew I'd recognise that at the beginning, that I needed more. Yeah. Because if you read the book as it originally was, you'd probably go, well, she's dreadful. She probably deserves what she went through. And that's not who I am at all. Yeah. So, and interestingly, the ending of the book, when it first went, because it goes to other people to read it as well, I ended up rewriting it. I rewrote almost the entire end of the book because I didn't like it. Because when I'd written it, I was still in that tired, exhausted, frustrated, fighting the world place, trying to just live every day. And it was really kind of like, this is hard, I don't know how I'm going to live. It wasn't quite that bad, but I rewrote it from a better place, and I was so much happier when I did, because there's no point telling a story if one of my aims is to encourage people to find the way to leave, if that's what they need to do. If I go, it's really hard work and it never ends, why would people do that? Whereas if I go, it is hard work, I'm not going to lie, however, there's like the end of the tunnel, and I've done this and I've achieved that, and that's kind of you want. So yeah. Rewriting it, I definitely was happier when I read it back afterwards. Yeah, it was much better.
Well, do you know what? My favourite line is literally, in the last page. I mean, there's loads of it. It's just, and I'm not giving anything away, but this was like, oh, well, not really. Yeah, it was like, oh. So the last line, before some assistance, by the time this book is released, so will he have been. I was like, ooh.
And weirdly enough, it was last Thursday.
Yeah.
A week apart.
How crazy.
A week.
So the phone's gone. Right. So next question. Getting down now. I've only got a couple left. So we've covered what you learn about writing the book. What surprised you most about writing the book?
I guess in some ways that I actually could write something. I really gave up. There was a couple of when I went to the beta reader. So basically, a beta reader is the first person who kind of outside the publisher who works with me and all of that. She doesn't know me from anybody. Well, when that came back, the notes, I was like, oh my Lord, I can't write this book. She's just said my life's terrible. I don't know. And I was like, hang on a minute. I've never written a book. Well, I have, but not this kind of book. Why would I know what to do? And my son's like, Mum, just get on with it. I was like, right. So I was like, right, okay, she's the expert. I followed every piece of guidance she gave me. I edited every bit that needed to be edited. I added information where it needed to be edited. I took everything I could from this person so that I could create something. And yeah, so to kind of to start it from where it was and then to create something actually real and hopefully worth reading.
It's definitely worth reading.
I think that's it. Being able to take that guidance and not let it kind of pull me down to the point where I go, oh, I don't want to do it. I can't do it. That's what I'm doing.
But no, brilliant. Well, you've done it and it's here. How did it feel? It's a random question. Like to when this turned up, obviously you wrote it, but when it turned up with the cover, like I remember how excited you were when you got when the front cover came through for you to approve, but like to see it all like put together in an actual book. So I know when I was reading it, obviously your name is above the top of the page, and I'm like, oh, but it's just that, like, so how did it feel to like actually, when you hold it in your hand, do you think, oh yeah, this is me? No,
it's still not quite there. And when it came through, I knew it was coming. I couldn't open the envelope to begin with. I couldn't open it, which is really weird. And in fact, because I ordered some books myself because people have bought from me, and it kind of goes to show, I know you're going to ask me what goes on after, but just jumping ahead for a second, weirdly enough, I was in the shower when this arrived and someone hammered on my door and I started shaking. And I was like, this is ridiculous, because loud noises kind of trigger me sometimes. And when I came downstairs, I saw there was something outside my door. I knew it was boxes, and I knew what it was. Started shaking, felt sick, couldn't open them for ages. Even though it's my book and I've seen it and I know what it looks like and I know the content, it's still kind of a bit weird that it's my piece of work.
Yeah. Yes, you should be so proud. I know you are proud. So, next question. Did writing the book change your perception of your marriage?
Well, I think it showed me that it had been bad for a lot longer than I'd realised. Again, partly because I'd read the messages consistently. Because it is that weird thing if you kind of just get used to how it is. And when you sort of learn to not feel much of anything, because it's easier to not do that, you kind of miss stuff. And even writing this, I know it's not all in here because I know I haven't remembered it all, because it's too much to remember it all. I'm not deliberately not remembering it, but I'm sure there's a lot more than's in here. And in fact, when I was writing it, my son reminded me of a couple of things that I'd completely forgotten.
Well, I think it's trauma.
Absolutely,
trauma causes
absolutely.
blockages.
And you kind of just, Yeah, you just learn to survive on a day-to-day basis, which sounds really kind of dramatic. It's not like I was in the Amazon, you know, with no food and struggling to find water or shelter or anything like that. It wasn't that at all. But you do learn to survive on a daily basis, because you kind of have to become somebody else. And it's not until afterwards, well, in fact, it wasn't afterwards. Part of the reason I think that this kind of really fell apart was after I was ill, after having lymphoma and going through chemo, and how it changed me. And I didn't like it, because I wasn't prepared to just bimble along through life anymore, and he didn't like it. And I think from that point it became, I'm not doing that, I'm not putting up with that, I'm not accepting that. But that was still hard, because I might have learned to stand back in his face when he was standing in mine, and he did that a lot. And there was times when his fist was, you know, kind of that close to my face. And he was literally, I know I reference this again in the book, the way he looked at me sometimes, I have never experienced that level of just pure hatred. And it might have been that I didn't say thank you for giving me a cup of tea or whatever it might be. He literally looked at me with this just sheer hatred on his face. So you do kind of learn, but I had to learn to stand back in his face, which was scary, and I was shaking, but I still did it. Because it was the only way, really. He would know that I wasn't going to do that anymore. So did it change it? I guess in some ways it reminded me that I wish I'd left sooner, and I know I ought to have left a long time before that, but it's kind of easy. And you look back at all the things like the financial difficulties that he caused. You know, you get to a point where it's like, well, it is horrible here, but God, it could be so much worse not here. Actually, it turns out it wasn't at all. It was just so much better. But when your brain is in that survival mode, you don't think that. You can't kind of see the truth of it, because you're too busy trying to exist in every other way, shape and form, and look after your children and make sure that, you know, all of those things, your brain doesn't really have the capacity to go, what's going on here? It's not right.
But it's like the saying, isn't it? You don't know what you've got till you've gone. You can, you live day to day, and because that's your life at that time, and you could have been living that life for so many years, it's a habit. It becomes a habit. So that's what you know, and that's what you do every day, day in, day out, and that's what you accept from that person, and that's what you give that person. But when you remove yourself from that situation, I mean, hindsight is a great thing, isn't it? But we don't have that hindsight when we're in the bubble. It's only when you can step back and you can see the bigger picture, and you can, you know, you can carve it up. But then when you talk to other people and they say, oh, well, we knew that years ago. Well,
it's funny, you know, I was talking to one of my neighbours today, and they said, oh, he was always so nice. I was like, yeah, he was one people, mostly.
So this is my next question.
When he was sober.
So what, if anything, has surprised you about people's perceptions, that's the one, that's it, of what it's like during and after an abusive relationship?
I mean, I could probably talk for a long time on this subject, but I think the main things were, I mean, if you don't know, he went to prison, and a couple of people said to me, well, he's in prison now, he can't hurt you. I was like, no, sorry, you really don't comprehend that. That's not how he is. And actually, that's not true. He still attempted to make my life really difficult. I think the hardest thing, and the one I hate the most, well, you can just move on now. No, you can't. Just because they're not in your house anymore, you can't literally go from hell to, everything's great now. You can't do it. But it's that perception of the, well, he's gone, so everything's okay. It's really not. It's really not an instant thing. You kind of have to learn how to live again. And if you're like me, you're not particularly good at asking for help. In fact, I spend my whole life helping other people. Yeah, really. It's really hard. It's really hard because you don't know. Me and my children, we had to learn how to communicate with each other again. Because we spent so long, particularly me and my son, walking on eggshells and texting each other if he was in a bad mood so the other one could know, and being really defensive about anything that was said to us, because that's what we needed to be like. It's taken us a long time to actually go, actually, that was a joke. And we've struggled. I've even seen it in my daughter, where people have kind of joked and she sort of looked at me and she doesn't know. And I've had to say to the person, we're having to learn how to actually deal with other emotions, because we don't know. And sometimes people have, I've bitten at things and gone, they didn't mean that. They didn't mean that. Brain is, and a few of my friends have gone, it's okay, we were joking, it's okay. But he would say things, vile, nasty things. And if I was joking, I didn't say that. Like the day he told me he had, so we were talking about this quite a long time ago. And I said I'd actually thought about how to leave him. And he went, oh yeah, I'd planned, I'd worked out how I could kill you and hide your body. And I went, oh, okay. And when I brought this back to him a few years later for something, because I told the solicitor, he's like, I never said that. I was like, I'm pretty certain it's not something I'm going to make up. He literally said to me, I planned how I could kill you and hide your body. Your brain's like, I'm sorry, that's just so far outside of my comprehension of what normal people are like. It's like the day he went to shoot me. He stood there and went, oh, don't worry, I'm not just leaving you or me behind. Oh no, he said that and they went, oh, don't worry, I won't shoot you in your sleep. You'll see it coming and you'll know why. And I went, what? I mean, what? And it's literally my brain was going between, oh my God, and don't be ridiculous. You absolute idiot. And then I went, show me the gun. And that's when he kind of said that. And I was like, okay, I actually don't know what to do here. Because what sane man tells his wife he's got a gun and he's going to shoot her because she's doing something he doesn't like? It was so beyond my comprehension that that's what people do. And this still comes in with, I love you. But you don't, but you can't love me and threaten to shoot me. It makes no sense. Right. Literally no sense.
It's just shocking. Okay, so enough of the interrogation. So if someone is in a relationship, they don't feel, that perhaps they feel something's wrong, like what signs should people look out for, or are there signs that people can look out for?
Well, interestingly enough, not that I'm not busy at all, I actually writing a book called The Little Book of Red Flags for precisely this reason, because these things aren't always as obvious as, he didn't hold me by the throat and demand money. He sneaked it, he stole it, he went through my stuff and took it. Abuse isn't necessarily obvious in your face kind of abuse. Some of it's really subtle and you don't realise what's going on, particularly if you're a nice person. You don't expect people to be like that. But I think it's that, if anyone kind of lays a hand on you, there is no excuse for that. I don't care what unless they're defending themselves, but then you should be doing it in the first place. I don't care. It's never your fault. It's never your fault if that's what they've done to you. It's them. But it's, if you're uncomfortable, if they're doing stuff, if they're promising to change and never changing, if they're lying and you catch them out, if they're taking your stuff, if they're not respecting your boundaries. I mean, one of his favourites was to not talk to me. If I said or did something he didn't like, he wouldn't talk to me. And when I'd say, well, what is it? Oh, I've forgotten it. Well, okay, you just not spoke to me for 4 days. I mean, in the end, I quite liked it because I didn't have to deal with it because you didn't speak to me. But it's those things. If people aren't respecting your boundaries, if they're not seeing, if they've got no compassion, really, clearly all warning signs. And I don't think I ever saw the man cry. Actually, that's not true. Once.
Well, don't give away anything else that's in the book.
Yeah, you're gonna have to read. You're just gonna have to read the whole thing to find out. But yeah, I mean, there are warning signs. I mean, hopefully, I mean, that's one of the things about this book is precisely that. Some of the things were so subtle, and you know, if you read some of the messages, you think the guy was trying to be nice, but he wasn't. And it's how you, it's not until you kind of see them all one after the other that you go, oh, it was so obvious.
Yeah, but you don't.
Well, you don't know exactly.
You don't know when you're in it. You don't know.
No,
you don't know, do you? Okay, so what advice would you give to someone going through it? Is there supports? Is there?
Okay, first thing is, to me, if they're on your bills, get them off your bills now. It's so difficult to do when they've gone. Get them off your joint bank account. If you've got one, try to get one. Stash money. If you've got a stash money, do that. Make sure you've got a copy of all of your important documents. Keep records of messages, emails, photos, anything, notes about conversations, keep those. I think the one singular thing as well, though, I mean, he was also convicted of stalking. Weirdly enough, it's the thing he got the shortest sentence for. But beside the point, the one thing that kind of helped me, which was more by luck than judgment, because I didn't know this, is my biggest saving grace is when I said to him, stop messaging me. And he continued. The point is that I didn't respond. Because the police said to me, if you had responded, you are essentially telling him it's okay for him to continue. So no matter how hard, and this night I had 43 messages and phone calls and goodness knows what. And some of it was so vile. You kind of want to get in there and go, this is ridiculous, stop, don't do it. Do not respond. Because the minute you respond, it affects any kind of case that you may have. But keep notes, keep records of everything. And just remember, it's not your fault. It is not your fault. But there are people who can help. And we will put some links at the end for organisations that might be able to help you. And, you know, it's not going to be easy. But I'll tell you what, it's definitely worth it. The minute he walked out of my house, it's like my house changed. Literally that quick. Wow. It was like the atmosphere in my house lifted. I used to dread going home. No, I love it.
Brilliant. So Karen's book, My Life with a Sociopath, It Can Happen to Anyone, is released tomorrow. So how can people buy it?
Okay, well, I'll put some links at the end, but it's actually on 9 different sites at the moment. It's kind of amazing. So it's on, who have we got? Telegraph Books, WH Smith, Waterstones, Wordery. It's on a Japanese site, an Estonian site, and a New Zealand site, weirdly enough. It's also on Amazon. Just Google the book and my name and they'll all come up. There's all sorts of places that you can get it from. You can get it from many places.
Fabulous. Well, this has been Karen Ferguson.
Thank you very much.
So it's good night from Karen.
That is good night from Alex.
Good night from me. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.